busy time for a lot of people, whether you're in the business office, whether you're with spring sports, administratively, academically, a lot going on. Tomorrow's the last day of class. That celebration moment in itself. So welcome to this final installment of the Synergy Lecture Series hosted by our Health and Wellness staff. Really excited that everybody came for this presentation. A little bit unique, and we'll let Dr. Koshnelli kind of go through it a little bit more. But as we get into today's topic, certainly there's a period where we do like to have some updates, kind of some more housekeeping items to go through. Health and Wellness staff, you've got the notice. Your bloodborne pathogen training should be done by the end of the month. I know Coach Roof is excited about that, along with a few others, but just some more training modules to complete. We do, as a Health and Wellness staff, have an end of the year meeting next week, next Tuesday morning. So again, just more of a celebration for us as a staff, and also looking ahead to what we're doing this coming year, some of our goals and expectations more defined, and a chance to get a free breakfast too. So we're all about feeding people here, especially in Health and Wellness. We have some guests here from Houston, so don't look over and see the red and get too concerned. But they are guests of us right now with academics. They're going around and speaking with people and trying to see what's going on. So I think Tebow was just trying to get out of paying for lunch for them, but that's probably what it was. There's some updates that each unit will go through here in a second. I did want to do a special recognition. Just get ready for it, DC. It's going to continue to happen in the next several weeks. But David Chandler's last day is today. For athletics. But that means with every ending there is a new beginning. And his new beginning is with the development office on campus. So he is still a Baylor Bear. He'll always be a Baylor Bear. 31 years of being on staff as a Baylor Bear in athletics. Really incredible run. Excited about what he's going to be able to do in the future. I know he is. I know Amy is, especially with being able to relocate and do the business of Baylor in Denver. And so he's going to be on campus for the next couple months, learning the new trade. So you certainly have more time to talk to him, but certainly wanted to give a chance for DC to say something if you wanted to. To the group, just a few words.
Speech.
You're gonna make me cry. So just thank you for everybody in the room. It is good. My kids both live. My older son is about to have a baby with his wife. My other son also lives in Denver. So the opportunity came up to move to Denver and still work for Baylor, and it's really good. And it is a God thing. I've discussed that before, but it's a God thing. And there's a lot of different things that have gone into it that got us there and helped us to make that decision, and it's all been from God. So that's the great thing. I think our health and wellness staff, the health and wellness for our student athletes is in better hands than it's ever been for the 31 years I've been here. So I'm leaving at a really good time because it's in great hands because of all these guys. So, thanks.
You never know when you come to one of these things, you might get called to speak, but definitely well deserved, and appreciate all the time and energy and really part of your life that you have given to Baylor and athletics and what we're doing in DC. So, well, at this point, I'm going to bring up Coach Nelson, Dr. Nelly, a lot of different things that he goes by. Some that we can say, some that we can't. But I will certainly turn this over. Again, I just want to publicly just say a word of appreciation for Josh and what he's done to take over this initiative. The vision was we wanted to communicate some information, kind of the theme of the day, but we also wanted to create an environment of fellowship with each other. One time a month that we can get together just in a way where we're not necessarily targeted with initiatives and things like that and other meetings, but to have a time to get together and talk through some things and share what we're doing in health and wellness. And I really feel like we've taken that, and Josh has moved to the next level. It's going to be a great conversation today that we'll have. Interactive, please get involved in the conversation. But Josh, take over.
All right, thanks again for everybody being here. And like Kenny said, we do have a pretty neat panel today. If you think back 2 months ago, what we did, we started to create an idea or did an exercise where we started to try to identify which each one of our elements within health and wellness does. So what does athletic medicine do? What does athletic mental health services do? Applied performance, athletic performance. What does sports nutrition do? Within our different elements, what do we do? What is our identity? We want to take the next step today and kind of move forward with packaging that information. So we have a fantastic panel today that does that for a living. Package information so that people can interpret it and understand what's going on, and oftentimes in a short amount of time, or maybe without a visual. Okay, so that's coming up a little bit later. We will have our department updates, so you'll hear leaders of the different 5 departments of health and wellness kind of talk about current events within our departments that's happened over the past 2 months since our last Synergy. And then we're going to kind of talk about a Synergy minute or an example of Synergy that has happened within our department. We'd be remiss to not touch on our operating procedures. We have 6 of them here at Baylor. If you go back to the managers meeting a couple months ago, I think Chad kind of started the trend of kind of going through and talking about one individual operating principle at a time. I think it's a great way to kind of study what we do, and it helps us ID what we need to do, and it's basically standards to live by for professional practice. Okay, so the one we can really hone in on today is this idea of doing our serviceable and personal best. And when we think about doing our personal best, it may be reaching a PR. Let's say we're in a training scenario. Let's say a personal record out on a sports field. Let's say it's a personal record in the classroom. If we think about that, it's easy to think it as being selfish a little bit. Now, it's all about me. Okay, I'm trying to do something personal. I'm trying to improve myself. But it couldn't be further from the truth. If we as a crew, as a health and wellness staff, as an athletic department, think about doing our personal best, our one little element, that will in fact move the entire team, the entire unit forward. So as we all try to do our personal best, we need to kind of think about a couple things. We need to be intentional in our actions. Okay, so whether it's working with athletes, whether it's studying, in or out of our field, we need to be intentional. You do not just accidentally improve. You have to deliberately try to do that. We need to be planned. Plans change all the time, but if you don't have a plan, sometimes learning, sometimes growth does not happen. The next one, we need to be reflective. Okay, so what did I do in the past? What have people before me done in the past? How can I learn from that? And that goes right into the bottom. We need to be active learners. So I always try and define what our personal best is, and moving our personal self forward will in turn move this whole group forward, and that's what we're hoping to do with our panel today. Take a minute now, we'll kind of go around with all of our department heads, and we'll just take 30 seconds to a minute and kind of go through some end-of-semester updates and current events. We will start with Dave Snyder and athletic medicine.
What Kenny and Josh alluded to is that May sort of turns into a meeting month, which it feels like every month here is a meeting month. But we do have our meeting next week, May 7th, the Baylor Health and Wellness meeting. For sports medicine specifically, we have the Big 12 medical aspect of sports symposium, May through 10th. That happens every year. It's a great opportunity to get together with the medical professionals in the conference and just discuss ideas and presentations, so it's very valuable. And as Baylor Athletic Medicine, sort of a family meeting, we have that on the 13th just to wrap up the year and sort of discuss anything that needs to be covered as we wrap the year up. In the midst of that, we're also finalizing the semester athlete medical reviews, which essentially you might hear as exit physical. So we want to just kind of wrap the semester up and the year up for each student athlete so we can just have a continuation of care for them as we prepare for the summer incoming athletes, whether it's number 1, 2, or as they come here right before school starts. So there's a lot of preparation to be ready for when the student athletes arrive and along with the return.
Okay, the next would be applied performance. So Coach Rash, Mitch Cholowinski, and myself, and Coach Altoff, we've been kind of doing some different collaboration within our data, within our interaction with HHPR on campus. Just kind of streaming our data streams together and provide them in order to move some of our research initiatives forward. Been IDing some end-of-year projects and what we need to do, and at this time there's a ton of different products, a lot of companies that have come down the line that we're just kind of going through with research and development. The major thing for us right now is this idea of substance abuse education. We're putting a pack together and delivering to all of our teams. I know it's at the end of the semester and a lot of teams are going to be finishing up here soon, but our goal is to deliver a short, concise substance abuse education message to all of our teams by the end of the year. Those are being delivered by the different performance coaches, and a couple examples of some of our slides, just screenshots from the things are up here. And then long term, we're looking ahead for some of our AMS integration, our athlete management system integration, how we're going to pull that data into that AMS system, how we're going to utilize that in the long term across all health and wellness.
With athletics performance, kind of like athletic medicine said, we're going to be going at the same time. Most of our staff will be up in Kansas City at our national conference, again, learning, getting our CMUs, connecting with others in our field, and sharing information there. So that'll be happening next week. And then we're going to be putting on a coaching clinic on June 1st on that Saturday. This will be open to any of the health and wellness staff, and we'll send out more information on that. We've got Coach Skadinsky and Coach Rash, Coach Heiss and Coach Campbell and Coach Melton speaking from our staff. And then we've got, from some guest presenter standpoints, Daniel Martinez is the head strength conditioning coach at Trinity University down in San Antonio. Has done a lot of work with force decks and force plates and jumping evaluations of athletes. He'll be coming in. Tracy Fober is a physical therapist and performance coach that runs a private practice in Park City, Utah, and has spent a lot of time working with the U.S. ski and snowboard team over the last Olympic quadrennial leading up to the 2016 Winter Games. And then our final presenter, and this is something I want to, hopefully we can find a way, if you are around and you want to come listen to Robbie Stock speak. He is a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and he will be very humble into how high up he was in that regards. But he runs an engineering business now, a fabrication business. But he was medically discharged from the U.S. Navy about 5 or 6 years ago. Has a very interesting story about lost his arm overseas and has had you want to talk about synergy. He's had a pretty tough road of trying to bounce back from that injury and not lose his arm. But he's going to be speaking on overcoming adversity and building teams. So we'll find out a way if you're interested in showing up. It'll be the last talk of the day. Listen to him talk. I've heard nothing but great things about his message and the story that he has to share. But that's what we got going on here in the coming months.
Coach Melton, you have any updates you'd like to share?
What's up, everybody? Galatians chapter 6, verse 2. Do my reading lessons as we know that. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. You won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. I'm going to miss David Chandler deeply. He is my father figure here. He's my best friend here. I've learned lessons from him about how to carry myself as a man, how to raise my children, how to treat my wife. He's taken me through 2 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries. He's encouraged me. He's motivated me. He's showed me when I've fallen short sometimes in a real caring way. Love DC, love you, I'm gonna miss you. And other than that, basketball is just about done.
All right, from the sports nutrition side of things, just wrapping up the year, it's a good time for us to get some feedback about the entire year, especially at the bank. Most of our athletes eat about 10 meals there throughout the week. So they can kind of get monotonous and really get some feedback from them. just so we can, adjust menus, talk with the bank staff and whatnot, so we can go forward, clean that up a little bit. We're gonna get the summer bank meal hours out pretty soon, just so those athletes who are here over the summer kind of know what to expect from a meal standpoint. As a staff, we've been kind of going through with our teams, it's kind of summer fueling education around nutrition. Some athletes are still competing, some athletes are still, training very difficult. For some athletes, it's a break to kind of get away from their sport. So that all impacts their nutrition needs, and just making sure they're prepared for that and they're doing what they need to do over the summer and come back in August to be successful. And then just kind of like a public service announcement for everyone. We do a lot of education with our athletes about supplements and what is appropriate to put in your body, things to look for as far as third-party testing and whatnot. But this recently just kind of came out in the news and some of the research. So Herbalife is a pretty popular brand. It's been really coming under fire the last couple of months because they found that products that were being manufactured in India, in their India factories, had high levels of different toxins and heavy metals and things like that. However, those same supplements were still found on some of these third-party testing ingredients. It just goes to show that even though a supplement is third-party tested, it doesn't mean it's completely safe to take. Just to really be smart with what you're putting in your body. Just because a friend is selling you something, or a PNC guy is telling you it's good, or even that it's third-party tested, you're still going to do your homework and look and take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these supplements and products that are on the market today, because it's just not all safe to take. And there's really no other governing body regulating supplements. So kind of the point with that was because of these heavy metals, a lot of people were having liver failure and dying from taking these supplements over the course of 2 months. So from the time they started to the time that they died in about 2 months, just taking these supplements regularly. So I'm sure most of us in this room have taken some kind of herbal supplement, some kind of protein powder, some kind of various things that you bought at the store. So just be smart about it. If you have questions, use us as a resource. I'll definitely send out some resources that you can do to do your homework on some things that maybe you're taking right now, just to kind of be aware of that.
So as we get to the end of the semester, I'm just trying to make sure I follow up with all athletes who've been treated this semester. So I've been reaching out to them, trying to get them to come in. I just want to do a 30-minute consult, especially those that are not going to be here over the summer and going to head home. Also, if they need services over the summer back home, I'm helping them find counseling and psychiatry services. If your athlete is on psychiatric medication, Dr. Amar is still seeing people. She has a few more appointments before the end of the semester. She also wants to try to wrap up with people. If they're going home, she's willing to give them a prescription to get them through so they don't have to find another psychiatrist while at home, but she needs to see them before they leave one more time. So if those appointments need to be made, I can help make those appointments. Make sure you're reaching out to your athletes and encouraging them to follow up with either me or Dr. Amar or both, if they're being treated by both. Our athletes that are graduating are not going to continue to participate in the sport. I'm definitely trying to meet with them one last time, whether I see them or not, just to help them think through after college, transition out of sport and things like that. So next week, I try to keep my calendar pretty clear so I can do these follow-ups and these end-of-semester appointments. You can use the link to give that link to the athletes. It's the 30-minute consult will be fine. And then we're planning for summer training. We're going to do the mental health 101 again, do CPR, suicide prevention, and we're going to do 2 other trainings. First, we're going to get a little more into dealing with mental health emergencies and then dealing with mental health stigma. So I'm trying to pull together dates now so I can have quite a few dates for all of these trainings. It will be something that I'll ask people to sign up for since I'm the only person giving the trainings. I want to make sure that there's a good number of people there. Not that I mind doing it with 1 or 2 people, but it'd be a better use of time if we had a good group coming. So I'll be sending out dates for all of these trainings. The mental health 101 and QPR will be the same as they were last summer. So if you did it last summer, those are the same trainings. And the mental health preparedness and the mental health culture will be new. And so I encourage everyone to try to go to as many of those as possible.
Thanks, Monique. Yes, so this last piece about staff education was something that was rolled into the package of the new NCAA bylaw about not only our student athletes, but providing education for staff. We've taken it another step further to provide it to all staff the opportunity to learn just really kind of basics about mental health care, mental health information. So really what I love about this place is you get a devotion, you get a comment from God's Word, and you get a lit review, all in the same meeting. You know, we've got a combination of a lot of different angles in which we go, but Charlie, thank you for those words. Certainly, and we are planning a reception for DC here in the next few weeks, as he gives me a little smirk. And talk about somebody that does not want the attention around himself. It's really, you know, what he does for our student athletes and servant leader that he is. You know, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of meetings is present this kind of the synergy in action moment, right? We've talked about in a lot of ways as we set up to this day, this point where we're having these meetings about synergy, what it means. But we also like to point back to when it's actually happening, right? We're really working together as a group for the betterment of our student athletes. And, you know, one example that I'll point to, and it had some specific involvement with a lot of other people involved one of our tennis players. And you know, there was a lot of things. It was when you look at it on the surface, it was a knee injury to an athlete leading into a championship season. I mean, that's not a very unique discussion, right? But when you start to peel back the layers of what was involved in about a 2-week period of time, and still ongoing for that matter, it really speaks to the level of collaboration and working together that we have to do as a group, not only within health and wellness, but within our entire department, and things that would go into play. So, you know, he has an injury in the Texas Tech game, injures his knee, and instantly our medical staff is obviously engaged with our friends at Southwest Sports Medicine, Dr. Haynes, and those that are getting involved. Cam probably got a call within 16 hours of the injury, maybe less, you know, for imaging. And so we're starting that process going. A lot of that communication happened on the front end to establish the communication lines within the people that are providing service. During that whole week leading up to it, there was really questionable, and I would think even highly questionable, about his ability to participate. A lot of concern about that. But the people that start to get involved in that area is not only our medical staff, but extends beyond that with our health and wellness team of how we're supporting him. Within our department, I mean, he's a great student athlete, great student. So how is he managing his classes, knowing that within a week's time, he's going to be in Kansas competing for a tournament, Big 12 tournament championship. So there was a lot that had to happen in a short amount of time. Discussions with operations about if he can't make it with the team, how are we going to get him to Lawrence ahead of time, or after the team gets there, to give him the best advantage, to get the care that he needs, and evaluate him properly so he's safe to go. So you start to peel all this back, and a lot of what we've done over the last couple of years is emphasize our individual sport care teams. And this is our care teams in action, right? The people that are involved with the day-to-day care of our student athletes, finding an intentional time when you need to talk about specifically those student athletes. So the care team around tennis is basically assembling, whether you realize it or not, they're assembling in the moment to help that specific case. And encouragement from me moving forward as we go into this next year to continue to work together to provide those moments of intentional discussion about our student athletes' care. That happens not only with our medical staff, our athletic performance staff, nutrition, mental health, but it's also our academic services and what we're doing to support the communication there. Our coaching staff. There's a communication line that happens within the care team with somebody that's represented there. So every member of that care team for that sport is responsible to make sure that's being carried out, because if we don't have those intentional times to talk about those and communicate those issues, then a lot of times things get forgotten, things get they fall between the cracks, and next thing you know, you're in hindsight wishing that you would have had more communication. So really congratulate the care team around our men's tennis program. He did play in the finals on Sunday. Didn't do great. Actually, I would say he did terrible performance-wise, but he got to the point where he could compete. He felt confident that he could, and I think that's what we try to do as a health and wellness staff, is just present opportunity to our student athletes, to give them the chance to succeed and have their championship moments while we are having ours behind the scenes of supporting our student athletes. So a little plug, it may be indoors tomorrow, maybe hopefully be outdoors on Saturday, but we are hosting the first and second rounds of the men's tennis tournament for the NCAAs. Charlie.
If you don't, I don't want to hog the spotlight or time on the floor. Speaking of championships, Thomas O'Day just got a national championship with women's basketball. We didn't address that sport, just want to bring that up. He's finishing his 4th year with me. He stepped in seamlessly in the absence of their strength and conditioning coach and helped march them all the way through the Final Four to the national championship, ultimately the White House, to get some Mickey D's. He's just done an amazing job for us. I know the job search has been going on, no announcements have been made, but I just want to commend him for the incredible work he's done, being there from 8 in the morning until 10 at night, doing the jobs nobody wants to do, and then stepping in and keeping those girls strong and fit, and then dealing with arguably one of the most challenging coaching situations on campus. And he's done a great job. So recognize him for that.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. It is exciting. It has been an exciting couple weeks. I don't know that. I think Alex and Thomas may have been out of town more than they've been in town the last 2 weeks, with all the opportunities to celebrate. Really a huge, not just for them, but for our entire campus and what we've been able to enjoy from the hard work that they put in this past year. So, Alex and Thomas, thank you. As we get into this next phase, this is going to cross over between what we're doing in health and wellness to other areas, and certainly take keys away from what you're doing in your area, whether it's in academics, with your teams, but across the board. We have incredible people that are part of our communication staff that really have a lot of insight when we start to talk about when you're meeting with recruits, when you're meeting with other parents or coaches or your team itself, alumni, maybe donors, a lot of individuals and stakeholders that we come in contact with on a daily basis that sometimes you forget. You have 2 minutes, but that's a 2-minute opportunity to share the story of what's going on, not only with you, but with the department and what we're doing as a health and wellness team. So I'm encouraged by this and excited to hear their words. So Josh, you want to take over?
Absolutely. If we can have Jovan, Derek, and J-Mo make your way up here. So, reflecting back to last time, what we did at the end was have a small little exercise where we kind of identified some different areas that maybe we identified ourselves with, or some of our strengths, some of our weaknesses, and we kind of started wanting to put an idea together on how we can sell our product as health and wellness. So we also encouraged us within each one of our units to continue to collaborate within ourselves and to ID what we do specifically that is a little bit different than everybody else. Some just general results that we had. So for like what is health and wellness, some umbrella categories was like holistic kept coming up, a collaborative environment, care, health and well-being. For areas to improve as we continue to sell this, some just umbrella categories that kind of came up were ID specifics. You know, what do families want to hear? Who am I talking to in preparation? What do I need to talk to with different people? Do they have a specific medical concern? Facility prep, what does the facility need to look like? And avoid overcomplicated talk that I think some of us who get excited about what we talk about sometimes fall prey to. Okay, and then an environment for recruiting, common words that kept coming up from this group: community, open and genuine, and game day feel. Okay, so encourage you within our individual groups of health and wellness to kind of think about that as we sell our product. So now, we have 3 tremendous people here. We have Derek Smith. Derek Smith is the voice of Baylor baseball. He also works on campus and hosts Baylor Connections, which is a podcast, and he serves as the PA announcer for football and basketball. We have Jovan Overshone. She single-handedly led the charge to rebrand Baylor University, all of our new marks. She basically is the Joanna Gaines of Baylor, right? And we have John Morris, who's the signature voice of Baylor University. Been with the university now for 32 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
32 years. So done a tremendous amount of stuff for the university. Has worked in a local news station, KWTX, and also for ESPN 1660. So we have expert panel up here. And what we want to do today, guys, is just kind of think about how can we sell. Okay, so we have kind of content knowledge of what we want to say within our departments. Now we need to package it. Okay, so this will be somewhat informal, and if we can, we'll just kind of take it and run. But you guys are the experts in branding. If we can, Jovan, I'll start with you because it's so new to us right now. Can we talk about what is branding and identity, maybe?
Sure. When I think of a brand, I mean, there's certain ones I think that come to mind that you have a solid or positive brand recognition or thoughts in your mind. So for me, whenever I think about a brand or you're branding something, you think of an end in mind. I think of first the outcome, the purpose, the vision, the core values of whatever it is that you're selling or that you're trying to present, and then work backwards from there. I think a successful brand is something that's every element of it, the story, the marks, the name, it's synonymous with that end game, that core purpose, that base value. So I really do. I think a brand is just, to brand something is just encapsulating the core identity, the authentic purpose of whatever it is that you're selling.
Those are great thoughts, and I would add, with as cluttered as everyone's day is, with as much information as we're all taking in, if people only remember one or two things about you, what do you drill down? That if you're visiting with a parent and student athlete who might be visiting with a number of schools, what differentiates you and what's special about you, that if that's all they remember, that's good enough for you until you get that next point of contact with them?
Jamie, I'll go to you with this. Let's say we have a small amount of time to convey a message. Let's say it's a radio 30-second clip. Let's say I meet somebody in the hallway that may be a donor, a family, and I have to sell right then. How do I get to the point immediately but be authentic?
Yeah, that's good, and it's not an easy answer because you have, think of all the knowledge you have that you want to share, but you only have a very short time. It's kind of like, I think the term is the elevator speech. You got enough time in an elevator ride to make the point that you want to make. So it's hard. It's really hard to do, but I think what's the most important thing that you want to get across, and get that point across and make it clearly and succinctly, knowing that you've got a lot more knowledge, you can expand on it if you get an opportunity, but the main thing is just to hit the high point or high points as quickly as you can, and then move on from there.
Okay. Yeah. You guys have anything?
I would add that, J-Mo alluded to this, but it's about what you want to leave them thinking about. So in that quick moment that you get, what is it that you're going to stir that they're going to continue to process and hopefully want to come back and ask more questions about? When I think about Baylor, I keep hearing people say that there's no one else like us. So if I were to tell somebody that in that quick, brief meeting, that there is no other institution, there's no other athletics department that operates just like we do, then I'm gone. I hope they wonder, what does that mean? How can you actually make that claim? What does that mean? I'm curious about it.
Do you think with that there's any negatives or no-nos that in that moment, is there something that we absolutely have to stay away from?
You can always mess something up.
I don't know. Again, to me, it kind of goes back to, you've got so much knowledge that you just can't tell everybody everything you want to tell them in that short amount of time. So maybe just be self-aware of, if I'm talking to Coach Altoff here, and all of a sudden his eyes glaze over, I'm talking too much, so just be self-aware of the person you're talking to and their time limit or time restraint. Okay. And again, hit the high points and then shut up. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Derek, let's go to you. Let's say we're broadcasting for Baylor baseball, and you're on the radio, and there's not necessarily a picture, we're listening to you. And so you're having to paint a picture without a visual. Let's say we're in the same situation and we don't have our facility to show. We don't have a PowerPoint ready to show a family that's coming in as a recruiting. How do we tell a story to them in a period of time?
Well, what I try to do, and I've listened to John a lot over the years, he does this so well, is doing your best to help people feel what the people there are feeling, right? Through your voice, whether it's a tense moment in the game, whether it's describing, this time of year the ball games start getting a little hotter than they were a couple weeks ago at this time, describing, maybe the players are sweating, or that maybe, I even mentioned that I could smell sunscreen at the game for the first time the other day. You want to take people inside what it feels like a little bit and paint that picture that enables them to come as close as they can to feeling like what the people at Baylor Ballpark this weekend are feeling. For you guys, it's a little bit different in the sense that obviously we have state-of-the-art equipment. Lots of universities have state-of-the-art equipment. So I think, again, it comes back to painting that picture of what is different about you guys. It's your passion coming across as you talk about it. I heard you all use the word holistic. I had the chance on that Baylor Connections podcast to interview Kenny Boyd last summer, I believe it was. Now, we had 23 minutes to talk, so we had time to really unpack it. But as he is describing at the top the way that, Monique is working with students in their mental health, as you're talking about the eating aspect, the health aspect, as you're talking about, I think there's a lot of people out there who, when you picture a strength and conditioning coach, picture the guy in there yelling at you in the weight room, or when you picture a trainer, it's the high school trainer trudging on out there to check on a player, when he's hurt. That's so far from the reality of what you do, and I think you need to take them in that picture of everything we do works hand in hand. My area is applied performance, but I work right alongside someone in nutrition, and I think in a short amount of time, you can paint a picture to take people inside. We've got a team of people working in tandem, almost like Paul's picture of the body in the Bible, all working together for the benefit of your student athlete. And I think that's a picture that you can paint in a short amount of time that the student athletes who would want to come to Baylor would resonate with them.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's take it maybe one more step further. Let's say we're on a one-on-one conversation. You mentioned the podcast with Kenny. Let's say you're interviewing someone and you're developing that conversation. How do you go about not dominating too much of the time yourself, or flip side, let's say they're dominating and you can't move the interview forward, and it's open to anybody?
Yeah. That happens. I mean, on both sides. I think if I've learned anything through the years is not to dominate the conversation. And sometimes you'll hear people doing an interview, and it's like the person conducting the interview wants you to let them know how much they know in asking a question, rather than asking a question and letting that person tell you what they know. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So sometimes there's that, and so be aware of that. So you don't want to dominate it, and then the other person, depending on the setting, depending on what it is, I guess you don't want them to dominate the conversation either. So maybe you have to jump in. Maybe they are talking and they've got, the term is diarrhea of the mouth, sorry, but they're talking and can't get to a stopping point, so you can help them. You can sort of say yes but, or yes and, or something like that, and give them a way to stop, so you could get another question in and kind of get them going in a different direction. Just a thought.
This is a simple thing, but open-ended questions. Like John said, because like when I'm interviewing Coach Rodriguez, for instance, when I get in trouble is when I start a question and don't quite have the end in mind, as John said, or when I ask a question, by the time I get to the end, I realize it kind of pretty much has a simple two-word answer, and then I'm right back where I started, right? So I think those open-ended questions designed to just find out what it is that they are interested in, so that you guys can pretty quickly come together with being able to tell them what it is that you have to offer that meets what they want. I mean, finding out a little bit of what the parents are interested in, what the students are interested in, with questions that allow them to take the ball for a few minutes, but also have it played for you to jump in is never a bad thing.
Josh, one thing, I don't know if very many people know, front of JMO and Derek, having that organizational thought process of how you put information together. Jovan, what are some things that you've learned as far as developing those bullet points, preparing for those conversations, and how that can apply in all areas?
No, that's a great question. I think over the years I've learned that every person kind of receives information and processes and prepares differently. But the one thing that's been pretty consistent is, and it really echoes much of what they've said, you know, as you're preparing talking points, you really are kind of, you're thinking through the process or the order of that an interview would likely naturally follow. You're thinking through flow. You don't want to ever prepare talking points in a way that your brain can't naturally process. You're competing with your thoughts. So that's one. And then also not trying to craft full-on scripting and statements. That some people prefer that, but most individuals that I've worked with, it's bullet points or short snippets that allows you to kind of own it on your own. So it's just enough to prep you on the topic, but it also allows you to just kind of formulate your own thoughts around it, make it your own statement, because then that's going to feel less scripted. It's going to feel more genuine and authentic. People tend to receive information better if they feel like you're being genuine with them. I mean, and hopefully we are. So I think just to find that balance of just actually your own personal style and thought, and then also that, you know, just a little assistance to direct you in the right path. Yeah.
And I would jump in and add along those lines, I love bullet points. I think they're great. If I'm going to schedule, if I was going to schedule an interview with Kev, okay, and he says to me, what do you want to talk about? My response would be, what do you want to talk about? What's good to talk about, you know, in your area? And say, just give me 2 or 3 bullet points or 3 or 4 bullet points, and that'll help us guide us through that interview. And that helps me to know what's important to him to talk to him about. And I think it helps him also know a direction of where we're going, rather than me saying, I don't know, you have to wait and find out to see what I'm going to ask you. So bullet points, you know, as a kind of roadmap for an interview, I think they're coming at it from somebody who does interviews. I think they're great. I think they're very, very helpful.
In regard to structuring questions or maybe a response, Jovan, can you touch on, let's say it's a sensitive topic. Let's say something has happened and we need to have a response for, maybe I'm a coaching staff and I need to talk about something that may not be easy to talk about. How do I structure that conversation?
Well, I think there's 2 sides to it. So one, I think it depends on the person, the situation. You know, hopefully if it's somebody that you've had some history or time with, if it's a staff member or student athlete, hopefully you've formed a foundation of trust. Hopefully that you've been consistent in communications with them up to that point. There's some foundational understanding of your intent and your purpose, because we receive information based on kind of what we formulated in the back of our minds about purpose or someone's intent. So hopefully you have that solid foundation. And if you have that, then I think that's where you can have a very candid and straightforward conversation, set the ground rules of knowing that this is the intent of this conversation, this is the purpose, this is what I'm trying to get to, so that you know you're operating from a good place. Actually had one of these yesterday. And I think what I kept reiterating in this situation, and this wasn't someone that I talked to all the time, but what I kept reiterating in the conversation was that the purpose is for us to get to a good place, or the purpose is X, Y, and Z, the purpose is this. And then making sure that there's comprehension and understanding of that. And like you said, not dominating the conversation, making sure you're receiving information just as much as you're giving, and that you're really listening and paying attention to body language. I think JMO said it earlier. I mean, if somebody kind of tenses up, you know, you realize that you might have to reframe how you're addressing an issue. But I think just always being transparent and consistent, and just own the purpose of the meeting or conversation.
Okay. Anybody have anything so far they would like to throw in? Okay.
Houston crew, anything? Okay.
So Derek, recently I've kind of seen some of your notes just at the ballpark as you prepare, as you go into a series with an opponent, whether you're self-scouting us, opponent scouting. Can you talk about preparation for maybe your on-air conversations, preparation for a conversation with a coach that maybe we could, let's say we're preparing to talk to a recruit and her family. How do we go about preparing to do that?
Well, so one thing with baseball is there's a lot of time to fill, right? You've got 9 innings and there's a lot of downtime, and you want to have stuff to talk about. Otherwise, you could just find yourself saying, here's the 2-1 pitch, it's high, ball 3, and then having nothing to talk about for 15 seconds until the next pitch comes along. And so what you want to do is you find as much information as you can, obviously, right? I've got game notes that I get from Rachel Caton. I get game notes from the other schools that I look at. I do a lot of Googling, just looking up local newspapers. We're playing Kansas State this weekend in baseball, so I'm checking out the Manhattan, Kansas newspaper to see what they're saying, and trying to just find as much information as I can. If players are on a hot streak, I want that information, which Baylor baseball's had a lot of players on hot streaks lately, thankfully, which is a great thing. But what I also try to do as much as I can, and this is sometimes easier said than done, is balance numbers versus whether it's emotional info or just fun stories, right? Because right now, whether it's Shea Langoliers, Andy Thomas, Cole Herring, Davis Wenzel, we've got a lot of guys who I could pretty much go in and say they're on a 14-game hitting streak, they are 19 for their last 31, they hit 5. That's great, but that gets old. People, you throw too much numbers at them, they can tune out. Kind of like John said, your eyes can glaze over a little bit if you get too much numbers. So I think it's good to find a balance between data and story where you can. Some of that comes from talking to the coaches and the players themselves. Maybe rather than saying that Shea Langoliers is giving his numbers over the last 10 games, could talk about the fact Coach Rod said they really worked with him on just not thinking up there, basically. They simplified his swing, told him not to worry about it, don't tinker with your swing, and he's on a hot streak. Well, I could tell you the numbers, but I think by telling a story like that picture of coaching and the student athlete, it paints a better picture. So maybe the parallel is you guys have a lot of data, but there's also a lot of personal interaction. So there's that balance, right? That balance between numbers that are useful and also the personal story. And it's sometimes hard to find that sweet spot, but it is there.
Okay. Marcus?
We talked about recruiting a little bit, and a lot of people in the room who in some capacity might be getting in front of folks. I'm interested in you all's thoughts on the people who would say, I'm just a natural, it's not really, I feel more comfortable when I don't prepare, when I don't have this for me just to talk, because I can then be more genuine. What are your, you all are professionals who do this all the time. It'd be easy for you to say, well, I'm just gonna kind of go and kind of wing it because I'm much more natural in that space. What are your thoughts on that? What advice would you give to folks who feel that way?
So I've dealt with that a lot with people. Some who truly are that great, and some who actually aren't. I think that's where I go back to, and maybe it's just the approach or how you position yourself when you're interacting with those individuals. That is where I do. Yes, you're great, but look, I just want to protect you and protect the conversation, ensure that you're best equipped, and I will give single word bullets to those individuals. And I'll just say, these are some potential topics that could come up, or these are some potential scenarios that I want you to be prepared for. And then I stroke the ego a little bit. I know that you're well equipped. I know that you can have these kind of conversations in your sleep, but I just want to make sure that you're well prepared. So I put it on myself a lot of times to think, I'm going to be overprotective, and here's some topics, and I'm going to talk you through them. But hey, you've probably got it. Sometimes people are receptive to it, sometimes they're not. But I don't know, you guys, interesting personalities.
And that is tough sometimes. I think sometimes maybe you have to point out someone, if you can find out people that they are impressed by, or someone in the field, to point out the level of work that goes into what they do. For example, I've since I came here as a student, have watched John. He's been doing this for a long time, and yet the level of preparation. You probably could show up to a game and just kind of do it, but you don't. You don't. He's got the ability, but he doesn't. And I think you look at you look at that, and that sets a model to follow. You know, in the broadcasting world, Vin Scully was the best, the absolute best before he retired, and the level of work he put into all 162 games was impressive. And if they're in a certain, you know, if they're in a certain field, you kind of, I mean, even if you just have a data bank of the level of preparation that, you know, like before an event that Mac Rhodes has to put in, or the level of preparation that you have to put in yourself. Sometimes just finding a story off the top of your head that can communicate that and why preparation matters can be effective, because sometimes they have to say, like, okay, the people I want to be like are doing this.
I think often too, I mean, sometimes, hopefully it's not a major opportunity, but there is an experience where they might not necessarily fumble, but it won't be, the outcome won't be as strong as they thought it could be. So I think you have to use those opportunities, and then that's where you come back and say, hey, this was great, but I think if you really were trying, your purpose with this event was to achieve X, Y, and Z. You know, maybe if we had prepared for this question a little bit more, this potential route, I think it's a process with some people, but kind of use those experiences.
I would say, Marcus, that the people, if you think of somebody that you think is really good, standing up in front of people and being very natural, and maybe you think they're just winging it, I would say those people are really good at being prepared, but then when they get up there, they're prepared enough that they're very confident in what they're going to say, so it just seems like they're winging it. You know what I mean? They're not reading a script. It's not that, but I think there has to have been a level of preparation for that person so that when they get up there, they seem very poised, they seem very comfortable, and they make the presentation maybe seem like they're winging it. That's what I would think too.
So this is kind of be the last one from us, and it's for everybody. From y'all's perspective, you know, you guys see what different elements of the athletic department does. What do you feel as though health and wellness, in the 5 areas of health and wellness, we need to be selling that's maybe exciting, impactful? I mean, what is it from y'all's perspective that we absolutely have to be selling?
I'll start, if that's okay. I would say the breadth and the depth of what y'all do. You know, I think there's probably very few people out there who know the different areas, you know, in this area of health and wellness. I think that the general fan and general population would be blown away by knowing that we have a person that deals with the mental health of student athletes. I think very few people know that. So I think to tell your whole story would be to tell, you know, the whole story of everything that you do and how you touch the student athletes in literally and figuratively in so many different ways, you know, in the area of health and wellness. Right. So that would be the main thing to me.
Thank you.
I agree exactly with what John said, and, you know, and maybe even add, you know, everyone at Baylor, there is that sense of mission that comes from, you know, being a faith-based institution, that comes from people here who do want to see these student athletes make the most of this opportunity and really become, you know, I've heard other people on campus say this term, but it's a great one, become all that God intended them to be in this season in their life and the season beyond that. And that's one thing that we can really sell that not any really other university at this level that we're competing at can do. And if there's a way, you know, you can communicate that, it doesn't have to be some sort of Christianese talk in the pitch, but there's a way to let people know that that's a part of what we're doing here, is the holistic part, like John said, but it's also that idea of making the most of this season and preparing you for the next one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, double ditto. But beyond that, I think just not being afraid to brag and to tell your story. You know, it's sometimes you say Christianese. I mean, it's not the most. You won't hear someone say that probably that often. It doesn't correspond with, you know, characteristics of humility and all of that to some. But to me, if you're not telling your story, one of two things is going to happen. It won't be told, diverse group of individuals as far as backgrounds and perspectives, and like they're mentioning the areas, the breadth of areas that we cover, but we need to talk about it. We talk about there's not another institution like us, but even from what we're doing here in this area, same thing. I mean, we talk about it with Marcus there in the States. Like, there's some really cool things that we're doing that others aren't, and we just have to get real comfortable with the uncomfortable, and tap one another on the back and pat each other on the back and brag a little bit. It's some great things.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions we'd like to bring up before we kind of conclude here?
Come on, somebody.
Somebody has.
Hey, John, how do you get meat sweats in a radio broadcast?
That did happen. So we were where?
It was in Salt Lake.
Well, it was in Salt Lake City. So somehow the conversation came up around one of the meal tables about, it was Coach Nunes. He woke up in the middle of the night and he was just sweating like crazy. And Coach Peterson says, "That's meat sweats." We said, "What are you talking about, meat sweats?" He said, "Did you eat some?" When we had steak the night before, he said, "Sometimes you eat a heavy meal like that and it wakes you up in the middle of the night and you got meat sweats." So we're laughing about that term, and Pat Nunley and I say, "We'll work that into the broadcast." And we did. I think the way we did it was, whoever we're playing, probably Syracuse, they break away, for a breakaway layup, and the guy's just, all jazzed up about getting ready to dunk the ball, and we said he had the meat sweats looking forward to that shot, and probably everybody listening to us thought, really never heard that term. But it's just kind of amusing ourselves sometimes to get stuff like that into the broadcast.
Sorry, I got us off track.
That's good. Derek will do that quite a bit. Somebody give Derek a word, and he'll work it into the broadcast.
Yeah, you've given me a few over the years.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to work them in.
It just kind of entertains ourselves, if nobody else. Can I say, before you close, that it's been great to be here for the David Chandler Tribute Luncheon. We have a fourth chair up here. David really should have been up here with us, or up here by himself. But I appreciate everything every one of you do. And David, I appreciate everything you have done. We've worked together for a long time, but you have done it in such a first-class manner, and you represent Baylor so very well. And we're going to miss you. We'll see you, but not as often as we would like. But we're going to miss you and wish you nothing but the best. Thank you. Yeah.
So as we kind of prepare some of these synergy meetings, we kind of talk about who we can bring in, who do we look to come in and speak, and oftentimes it always comes back to who we have in this room, who we already have in our athletic department. We have some tremendous people, as evidenced by these three up here, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time today for being with us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this is our last synergy for the spring of 19. We will resume in August, September. Through there, we'll send those dates out as we get closer. But again, encourage everyone, continue to work together and finish up this semester strong and have a wonderful summer. Thank everybody for being here.
Thank you. That was great.
It turned out really good.